Thank you. All right, so I apologize it's taking a little while to get started. There's a little bit of setup in this. So I've been doing a talk for, I don't know, I guess, well, actually I've been doing a couple of talks for a couple of years about social engineering. And the first one was called Something Smells Fishy with a PH. And I'm also a big fishy. So then I wanted to do a little bit more technical stint on things. So a friend of mine, Pat McCoy, and I got together and put together this presentation called Hook, Line, and Sinker, the Liar for Hire's ultimate Hacklebox, I guess. And then I was talking to a friend of mine, a young man who actually goes to school really close to here, named Solomon, who when he saw a version of this presentation, he said you should call it a Hacklebox. So the name stuck. And by the way, that was 3 days ago. So anyway, here's to you, Solomon. Thanks for that inspiration. Let me see if I can get this. Hey, here we go. All right, so a little bit of selfless or shameless self-promotion. Not selfless at all. PwnStone, for those of you who don't know about PwnStone, other than the tool PwnStone, which is kind of no more, and it's called MDM scanner or some such nonsense. PwnStone was founded in 1999. We were bought by McAfee in 2004, and then acquired by Intel, or McAfee was acquired by Intel by 2011, so last year. So I had become the hacker inside. How about that? What I always wanted to be. So PwnStone Professional Services is worldwide. In fact, many of you probably know Carrick Dooley, by any chance. Anybody know Carrick? Yeah. Okay. Well, Carrick is leading our PwnStone EMEA unit, so over in Europe right now. And actually, we just sent a director to APAC to lead that charge over there. So things are growing. We are growing. We are hiring, by the way. You'll hear me say that again. We are hiring again. So there, I said it twice. We're out there on social media. Some of you may know the name Brad Antonowitz. He does a lot of wireless research and stuff. Well, Brad has just taken off. Recently, gotten really into the research end of stuff. And he's kind of the guy behind the @PwnStone Twitter handle. There's a few others, FSEMEA, Open PwnStone. Blog.opensecurityresearch.com is kind of our blog site. It just recently got launched. A little bit about me. I just kind of put alphabet out there after my name. I tend to collect certifications. In fact, the most recent one I got was the QSA. Yeah, I know. Yes, I'm selling it. So, whatever.
You've been bought by 2 giant Fortune 500.
Yeah,
you sold out long ago.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was kind of bought and sold, Yeah, I was paid for when I got here, right? So anyway, I've been in the industry since 1998. Now everyone here was born in 1998, right? Okay, good. You were like 9, right, or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Although you can probably hack better back then than I came out. So. Anyway, my charge with PwnStone, my specialty is social engineering. I do physical security. I also do wireless, internal, external, the traditional pen test lines. I pretty much do what they tell me to do. My claim to fame, I guess, most recently was placing second place in the social engineering CTF at DEF CON 19. Yeah, I would highly recommend that experience, by the way. It was a lot of fun. Chris makes you feel like you're an expert in that room, so it's really kind of cool. So, all right, so on to the talk. Now, this talk used to be structured sort of in the reverse order it is now. So if I trip up and think something's next when I actually just went through it, I'm sorry, I'm kind of old. But anyway, the idea here is a kit of sorts, also now called a Hacklebox, of basically a collection of utilities that a physical social engineer would use in their job. And the whole concept here is that I wanted to collect these things and put them into a kit that I could ship across the country. Because believe it or not, we have more social engineering business than I can personally do myself. So we have other consultants do it, and so I wanted to be able to just kind of ship this kit. And so, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I started assembling these things and just different pieces and parts. And so now I've created this kit. So what I'm going to do is just kind of take you through what's in it quickly, because there's a lot of stuff in it, and there's all kinds of stories behind everything, but I'll spare you that. Give you some tips on where I got some of this stuff and where you can get it, and then kind of highlight a few of the cooler tools that are in the kit, at least that I think are kind of cool, more technical and that type of stuff. And then I've also got a little surprise for you, a preview of a tool that I've been working on for quite a while now that I plan to kind of present at DEF CON. This was kind of my hook to the Skydog, on letting me talk. I told him I'd be doing a preview of something else and present at DEF CON, and he got all excited. Oh, we love previews, right? All right. Okay, so what's there? All right, the Hacklebox as it is. Not sure how much you can see there with from you guys in the back, but if you want to talk afterwards, I actually have the physical kit with me because I'm using pieces and parts of it, so I just figured, hey, bring the whole thing, right? But to highlight a few things here, first of all, there's some laminating sheets. Here, I'm going to turn this on so I can get a little closer here. All right, so first of all, some laminating sheets to make your own badges, right? We always need some badges. And then, of course, some double-sided tape. Why not duct tape? Because duct tape's not double-sided, right? You'll learn one thing about when you're making these kits. You want things that have multiple purposes, right? All right, next, I don't know if you can see this real well, but it's a cell phone holster. And basically, that's used so that you can put the camera out facing on your cell phone and video things while you're doing it, especially getting good video of badges. I like spoofing badges. All right, there's the PwnPlug. This particular model is the PwnPlug Elite that also has the Verizon data card, the extra Ethernet adapter, and some other stuff. All right, and then a pocket AP. Very useful when you walk into the building and you need to plug into their network, right? Instead of tote an entire laptop. You'll notice some of the ties to that. This is called a Print Me thumb drive. And basically, the reason it's pink is basically this is the thing that you hand to the receptionist and say, could you print out my boarding pass, right? Don't make this some evil-looking hackerish kind of thing. What I did is I made it pink, and so if she asks, oh, well, that's a pretty thumb drive. Yeah, it's my daughter. She gave it to me. I lost mine because I'm a dumb old man, right? And, of course, they plug it right in, and they double-click on the PDF, and it, whatever. All right. That's all that stuff. A little crossover connector, just in case you can't get to a network and you need to connect to a machine. Yes, Keith?
Everybody's going to fries. They have those short stubby ones, fries, over the filter with PC.
Okay, yeah, these are handy, and they don't cost much. I mean, it's just handy to have with you, just in case you're troubleshooting something. All right, so here's the Teensy and the Ducky. The Teensy up here, which some of you I'm sure are very familiar with, and maybe you're not familiar with the Ducky. Hack 5? Everybody knows? Okay, everybody knows the Ducky. All right, Teensy and Ducky. And then Kevin Mitnick's business card. Of course, it doesn't have to be Kevin, but I just kind of like to show that off. But he was at the CTF and everything. I got to meet him. That was cool. But it mostly because the business card doubles as a lockpick kit. It's not a great lockpick kit, but in a pinch, it'll work. And so you can also get other business cards in a lockpick. Okay, next, one of my latest acquisitions is a Nook Color running CyanogenMod 7 and Backtrack 5. I don't know if you've played around with this. It's well worth the time and fun learning and messing around with it. It actually is a functioning backtrack distribution. It's the ARM distribution. Although, getting graphical with it is not all that fun. I mean, it's kind of slow. But anyway, it works out all right. A true lockpick set that I got from Deviant, a good tool. A little shout out to the tool there. Retractable Cat5 cable, because you never know when you might need one of those. And let's see, an alpha 1-watt wireless adapter that can go with the PwnPlug for doing the Equal AP stuff, or just for for doing wireless stuff in general. Proxmark 3, if you're not familiar with RFID cloning, that's a good automated device to clone RFID badges with. And then and then a 1 terabyte USB drive with Katana, Penbot, etc. I went with this form factor so that I could hold not only Katana, which takes, I guess, about 16 gigs now, or maybe 8 gigs, but also if I want to hold my rainbow tables, and I want a good full set, so I got to have a minimum of terabyte to do that. And that, by the way, that USB drive is about the size of a cell phone, so it'll fit in your pocket. That was another requirement. Okay, most of this stuff that you see in here, other than the PwnPlug, just about everything will fit in a pocket. Believe it or not, the lip color will fit in a pocket. It depends on the size of the jeans. So that you don't have to, have a big box of crap or a backpack, right? Let's see, and then finally some firewire cables, so that just in case that old firewire trick of connecting to the Macs and getting around all that stuff. Haven't messed with much of that lately. After I bought the cables, I think they came out with a patch, so yeah, so much for that. And then finally, I think, a hidden button camera down here. These are about $100, I guess, and really handy to record things without people knowing. And it's amazing how non-observant people really are. You can put this in like the lapel of a jacket, the little button thing that goes in the lapel. And as long as the jacket is black, people won't notice. And you can film them just right up close, and they'll just never notice that you're filming. No big deal. It's handy, especially if you're doing, if your client wants video proof of you getting into a room or whatever. Like if they're not allowing you to connect to the network. All right, so that's the Hacklebox. So where could you get a Hacklebox? Well, you can assemble it by going to, office supply stores and go out to Pony Express, go out to PRJC, to Hack5. Outerz0ne makes Penbot, and by the way, he just sent me a beta of their Mac version. If you're not familiar with Penbot, I'm going to do a little demo on it, and we'll talk about it. It's just badass. Sorry. Let's see, Katana, you get that from Hack from a Cave. By the way, another version of Katana is coming out. You heard it here first. I was talking to Ronan earlier this week, and we're going to collaborate on some enhancements to Katana, right? How long has it been since there was development? 2, maybe even 3 years. Proxmark 3, you got Proxmark 3, good color, but okay, so you can go to all these places. Or you can go to Ace Hackler. Right? Pretty much everything in my kit you can get at Ace Hackler. All right. So I promised Taylor I would mention Ace Hackler and show a little screenshot. You guys head out there, big props to them. Okay. Who couldn't be here, by the way? So, all right. So the PwnPlug Elite. This is just like, to me, to some extent, this whole reverse SSH shell is like magic. Okay, it's just one of those things. It's like Nmap. It's like Netcat. It's just those things that you come across that are just too cool, and you just have to use them. You have to try to use the whole concept. So the concept behind the PwnPlug is you plug it into a network, and it some way finds its way out of the network to connect to a server that you have on the internet. All right, that's the concept, and it can do it through just straight regular old SSH. It can do it through SSH on high port. It can do it through HTTP, HTTPS, ICMP, DNS, whatever, magnetized networks. I don't know, some kind of magic. But you can also do it through a data card. But the really cool thing, in my mind, is you don't necessarily have to be sitting there monitoring your server on the outside for when the connection happens. Okay, you can do that, but you don't have to. And so this leads me to a little demo real quick. And like I said, it's just a little quick, nice, convenient thing that PwnPlug supports. Okay, everybody see that okay? Yeah. All right, so So with the lighting, it's going to be a little bit rough to see here, but I apologize. So what you see on the left-hand side is an app on my is a screenshot of my phone. All right, my Android phone, the home page. And then on the right-hand side is an SSH session with a server on the internet. So when the PwnPlug starts up, let's see what that. Wonderful. PwnPlug starts up and it connects to the server on the internet, and this is all configurable. But essentially, when it creates that connection, all you see on your internet server is a port opening. Okay, in this case, port 3333. Yeah. Okay, and basically this will work on backtrack. No big deal. So it cranks up this connection on 3333, and it authenticates with whatever user you want. It uses like digital certificates, so you don't need a password and all that good stuff. And so you see the PwnPlug. Okay, and then what happens is it sends an email to your phone at your provider, which is translated into an SMS message. So you're just bopping along. You don't have to worry about checking the thing. You just get a text message. It says something like, "All aboard the Pony Express. Your PwnPlug shell has reached its destination." So it's kind of like beaconing out, saying, "Okay, master, I'm ready." Right? Kind of cool, kind of convenient. Then you just go and you just do a local SSH to that port, that 3333. You get prompted, you log in, and then you're on. So now your shell is on the PwnPlug, and of course, you can see it's got a little non-routable IP address, so you can do your little MBT scanning and all that stuff. Whatever utilities are sitting on the PwnPlug, you have use of and all that good stuff, right? It's got Metasploit, it's got a few other things. All right, what we're going to see, the kind of extra stuff today, what you're going to see is me taking this concept kind of to the next level, or one level. There's a lot of ways you can go with this. All right. Okay. Let's see if that works. Okay, so the Teensy and the Ducky. Who here has heard of Kautilya? Kautilya. Adrian, you've heard of Kautilya, right? Okay, maybe you don't remember the name. I don't remember the guy's name, but he has created this. It's a lot like what Dave did with Set, but it kind of goes into, it's just for programming the Teensy. And so he's got about 12 different choices of different payloads you can do. And he's made it a little bit more customizable. Speaking from someone who doesn't know C, and couldn't code his way out of a paper bag, it's pretty helpful. And he keeps adding these new payloads as time goes on. So Google Kautilya, and if you like messing around with the Teensy and I won't say playing with your Teensy, but if you like mess around with the Teensy device, Kautilya is worth checking out. Okay, he's got some kind of weird, whacked out payloads and fun stuff. I'm sorry, say that again. Right. Right. So that it'll actually accept your input for you to choose payloads.
No, I'm saying you make keystrokes, log all the keystrokes, log it, then also make them items, then decide what keystrokes stuff.
Right. Yeah, I've seen your stuff. Yeah, I guess my point for pointing out Kautilya is this is a utility you can use without being kind of a noob at coding or whatever, being a non-coder, right? Because pushing the code to the Teensy is probably the easy part with Sketchpad and all that stuff. And basically what Kautilya does is create the PDEs for it so that you can push it down. But what I wanted to highlight here as well is for the Hack 5 guys created this Ducky, which they created this little scripting language, which is about the limit of my coding knowledge. And I'm really not totally stupid, but so they created this scripting language, though, that, I mean, it's really simple. It's like you type in string, and then you type what characters you want it to type, literally. And then you type an enter for it to press the enter key. All right, so it's truly, truly basic stuff. And I have a little demo here for, I threw a payload that I thought was kind of interesting in the Ducky. Of course, I gotta find it. Okay, so my first point, though, I guess, is you can put, this is the Ducky here. So essentially, coding this thing is just taking Notepad and saving a file, and then using the Duck encoder to create a bin file and saving it on an SD card. Right? It's pretty much that simple. Right? So what I do is I use this little SD card to USB adapter to push the code to it, and then I plug it in the Ducky. And then I found this USB drive that I had laying around that I was able to separate without actually breaking it, so I could actually put it back together. And so I even store my little USB to the SD card in the same compartment of the USB drive. So that way I've got it with me. And if I decide to change payloads, at the spur of the moment, I can always, change payloads, like sitting in the bathroom of the building or something, and go in there and change payloads and figure out something else. So, and there's all kind of payloads, all right? I don't want you to get the wrong impression. There's all, reverse shells and getting around AV and all that good stuff. But I came across a payload that someone coded, and I thought it was kind of cute. So I plugged in the Teensy, and I'm hoping, okay, it'll work close enough. And so you may have seen this payload, but I thought it was cute. Yeah. So if you can't tell, that's Bart Simpson, and I learned a lot on my computer, all that stuff. If I'm not mistaken, the kid that coded this was like 14. So he submitted this to the forum and said, I hope you like this. I don't have a Ducky to test it on, because they're kind of expensive. They're like $80. He didn't have $80 to spend on a Ducky, and he was like, I'm only 14. So I thought it was, worth that, because, corrupting our youth is part of my mission in life, I guess. All right. So that's the, all right. This guy down. Okay. How are we doing on time, by the way? Anybody got any idea what time it is?
Get like 25, 30 minutes.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so the next tool I want to highlight in the Hacklebox is the Proxmark 3, and basically taking that to the next level. So, are you getting kind of a theme here of what I do? I've been accused of doing that as a family practice as a kid. When somebody tells a joke in your family, and then someone decides to improve the joke and retell it with a different punchline or whatever, yeah, my wife gets on me about it all the time. So it's just kind of one of those things I do. I never come up with a unique idea. I just improve others, or at least I try. So the trick here is with Proxmark 3. The trick here is, and if you can see the antenna, all right. The antenna is basically the size of a CD-ROM, all right, or compact disc. And so the idea, the first implementation of it was, I'll just wear like a jacket, like a blazer or something, look professional. And I'll put the Proxmark 3 device in the breast pocket, and then I'll run the wire down my sleeve, and I'll palm the antenna. So then when I go to clone somebody's card, I'll just get kind of close to them, and I'll just kind of bump them with the card in my hand, right? No big deal. Well, one day I was on an engagement, and I was in Chicago, and it was really hot, which I think is kind of unique, because every other time I've been in Chicago, it's really cold, windy and rainy and all that. But it was really hot. So I wasn't really prepared for it to be hot in Chicago. All right? I mean, I travel with enough clothes, disguises and everything as it is. So I had to come up with a solution. Well, so I just kind of racking my brain. I end up at a Best Buy up in Chicago, and I find this thing, Well, what this is a little, and it's right here, by the way. It's a USB hard drive case that has an external pocket. So I got the idea, well, what if I take the Proxmark, put it inside, and get it all wired up, and then put the antenna outside? Could I clone a card, through the canvas? Well, sure enough, you can. And the funny thing was, I needed to practice with it. I mean, this is a whole other, idea for me as far as how to clone a card. So I'm walking through the streets of Chicago, and I'm just wanting to test to see how many people would notice if I were to bump their hip with this thing instead of just my bare hand, right? And how close would I have to get? Now, mind you, I didn't go through and cloning everybody's card in Chicago, okay? Even if I did, I probably would admit that anyway, but on camera. So I just started kind of bumping people just to kind of get an idea, some trials. Well, I'm walking, and so then, if you've ever been to Chicago, they're very crowded streets, all right, especially during the business day, especially during lunchtime. And so you can actually stand with a big crowd of people waiting on, the crosswalk, to change. And as soon as it changes, everybody, it's almost like a subway. Everybody is just dying to get across the street. So there's a lot of bumping going on. So I'm thinking, okay, well, that's a good opportunity. So I start bumping people, and I'm looking for badges, and I'm bumping. And so then, finally, I'm walking across this one street, and this lady has her badge, okay? And instead of wearing it, she's holding it in her hand, okay? And I normally don't bump women. Okay, women are very sensitive, especially if their badge is near their purse, right? You have this third eye comes out of your ear watching that purse, right? So I typically don't bump women, but this lady was walking, as Chicagoans do, really, swinging that bag. So I'm like, just curious, I wonder. So I hold this thing up, and I don't even have to get that close to her. She's swinging her hand. She swings back and she bumps my device. Right? Doesn't even look back. And I know she felt it, because I felt it. I felt her hand hit the device. So she hit it pretty hard. And I'm looking at her, and I'm trying not to look, really creepy, but she doesn't even look back. I'm like, wow, this is weird. So then I follow her 3 or 4 blocks, and she bumps it, I don't know, 6, 7 times. She never looks. Oh man, this is awesome. So that was kind of the birth of this whole idea of carrying it around. And it works so great, especially if you have black pants or whatever, people just don't even notice. I don't know what they think I'm carrying, but they just don't notice. They don't care. So I can stand in line at the Shoney's or whatever and bump people to the side or whatever using this little guy. All right. So along with the theme of having an enhancement for this, real quick, a quick review of RFID cloning. Everybody knows Chris Padgett, or Jonathan Westhues, I guess, came up with this first, but Chris Padgett really brought it into the mainstream of doing RFID cloning. Essentially, the device just acts like a reader, energizes an RFID card, records that, and then has a play mode, right? It just plays back that card, right? But the problem with that is, what if you clone somebody's card who only has access to the front door? What if they don't have access to the data center or whatever sensitive area you want to get in? Well, then you have to go back out and clone somebody else's card. And, every time you clone a card, there's a chance of getting caught. And, I don't like getting caught. It's not near as fun as getting away with things. So, enter proxbrute. Has anybody here heard of proxbrute by any chance? Seriously? Yeah, I'm happy. Oh, you got one? Okay.
I don't have one. I know.
Okay. You got a cool kid friend. Well, so it works with the Proxmark 3. Yeah. You're like the Delaware of kids. Okay. Anyway, sorry, inside joke. Okay, so what proxbrute does is, and by the way, Brad and Tonowitz came up with this. Well, I was on a gig and I was complaining about, well, now I have to go clone somebody else's card. He said, well, why should you have to do that? Why can't we just brute force the employee ID portion of the card? I mean, it's just a 40-bit or 64-bit character, code that this thing is replaying, right? So what he did was he coded this thing to, and it's just a flash, it's just a firmware flash. You just update the Proxmark 3 firmware with this firmware that you created, and so that when you press the play button, instead of just replaying the one card, it actually will play. It'll keep the facility ID the same, and then it will replay your card, but then it will decrement the card ID by 1. And then play that for a second, and then decrement the card ID by 1 and play that for a second, right? So why decrement? Okay.
The people who set up the system probably gave themselves overall.
Exactly. The guy who got the system, I mean, most cards are issued in like blocks of 100 or whatever. The guy who went and got the system and implemented it probably issued himself a card first, or at least like a admin card, backup, root, access to everything card. And then he started issuing himself, and then he probably issued the security guards that need access to everything, and blah, blah, blah. And then finally, you get down to the card that you cloned, which might have been, the 99th or the, whatever, 2000th person who got a card. And so by working your way backwards in the reverse direction, you'll get to a better card, right? Someone who had their card issued for longer and likely has more access. Now, a little bit of a warning about this particular this device and this method is every time the Proxmark or the proxbrute utility changes card numbers, the card reader that you're playing it on beeps. So it's a bit loud. So imagine you're standing at the server room door, and it's playing Mary Sue, the receptionist, and it goes beep, and the door doesn't let you in. And then it plays, Bob's card, and it goes beep, and it doesn't let you in. And so every second, beep, 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 right? So you don't want to do it in the middle of the day, right? You want to come back later at night to do this kind of thing. And in fact, I had a consultant telling me that he did just that, and the janitor showed up and said, was wondering about the beeping. Said, you need to get in the door? He said, yeah, I'm having some trouble troubleshooting this card reader. He said, oh, well, I can get in. Here. And he let him in. So one way or another, right? No, he didn't clone his card, but I guess he could have. That would have been a great idea. Actually, when I was cloning cards one time, that's a great story. I went to where the cleaners were. About 5 o'clock is when the cleaners show up, by the way, to come clean the building. And I went, and I was having trouble cloning a card. So I asked one of the cleaners, well, could you test it for me? Can we test this real quick? Make sure your card's working. Yeah, your card's working. Oh, you're the supervisor? Yeah, I need to check your cards. He was like, oh, sure. Here, take it. So, of course, while I'm just about to go over the reader, I just cloned it real quick and then go to the reader, right? So anyway, an interesting utility to take that to the next level. All right, so the next utility that I think is just way too cool is called Penbot. And by the way, I have to give credit to Pat McCoy. He found these pictures. I am located within thine base, participating in the murder of thine dudes. So, props for that. So what Penbot does, as far as I can tell, the developer's not real forthcoming with exactly the inner workings of Penbot, but I guess understandably. Essentially what it does is it temporarily modifies the system boot partition, right? That little MBR, that little 512K at the start of the disk. And essentially injects a little bit of code that tells it whenever it receives a password, make that a valid password. So it doesn't matter what password you type in. Now there's a Windows version currently, and like I said before, there's a beta version of Mac out there that I haven't had a chance to test yet, because I just got it yesterday. But essentially what it does is it lets you elevate the system. So for purposes of demonstration, and hopefully I'm not going to run out of time here. Let's see here. That's not good. Okay. So for purposes of demonstration, basically what I've done is I've taken a Penbot image and configured a virtual machine to boot up using, I don't know if you can see this here, but yeah, using the conboot CD ISO to boot up the VM. Okay? Now, I could boot it without the CD and show you that my VM does not have a blank password, or you could just trust me that it doesn't have a blank password. All right?
That's a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Trust the guy given the social
Yeah,
mention.
trust the liar. Yeah. That's usually why when I introduce myself, I don't start with, hi, I'm a paid liar. But you can see the conboot splash screen, and it's gone in and it's done its little injection there, and it's booting up. And believe it or not, conboot version 1 has been out for I don't know how long. There's a free version, there's a paid version. Version 2, one reason that I like the idea of getting version 2 is it also has a privilege escalation utility within it. So in addition to version 1, it's a little bit of an extra hit there. So what I'm going to do is show you the privilege escalation piece of it after just logging in with. And in fact, I tell you what, instead of a blank password, I'm just going to press the number 1 a bunch of times.
Just roll your face on the keyboard. Legitimately.
Okay. So do what? Put my face on the keyboard?
Take your glasses off.
But I type on the keyboard with my hands.
Here, how's this?
How's this? Oh, it's up. There we go. Here, let me get in there. Is that good? Is that good? All right. Now, if that was my password, that'd be pretty incredible. Okay. So, all right. Sorry, I might put my face. You don't know where that keyboard is. All right. So anyway, so there we go. Right to the desktop. No big deal. All right. So within this desktop, okay. So I bring up a command prompt, and I'm logged in as consultant. And you can log in as anyone with Conboot as long as you know what account you're logging in as, right? You still have to figure that out. But let's. So I'm going to do who am I, and that just shows that I'm consultant. And I'm going to try to add a user. And of course, I get access to that. Even though the consultant account's in the admin group, whatever, it's locked down. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy, and this is just what the instructions from Conboot say, is to copy command.exe to cmk.exe, and then run cmk.exe, right? Which opens up a more privileged command shell. Who am I now? I am system. And of course, right, I can add an account. I can do anything I want on system, right? I can shut down AV. I can, do all that happy stuff, right? Wonderful. Makes perfect sense. All right. So that's Conboot. And I've been in kind of some conversations with Fyodor about, well, actually I had some trouble installing this, so I had to talk to him, and then all of a sudden he was like, hey, maybe you want to be a beta tester for the Mac. I was like, okay, cool, yeah. I like hacking Mac.
Who did you say? Is it Steve?
No, his name is Pyotr. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Piotr, and his last name is Vanya. He's Russian. Yeah, I know. I'm a trusting kind of guy. You have a question back there?
Yeah, I thought the whole thing was conflict with it.
That if you added users with them, they...
Yeah, because I guess they work in the very same database. So if you add a user, and come back.
Well, I haven't thoroughly tested that, but that's certainly something I'll confirm. As far as I remember, when I did this before, when I was kind of testing it, I rebooted without pointing to the conboot, and the user was there. Because I tried it again and I got an error that the user existed. But, so I know that the
Does that work with your credit?
No, actually, well, the defense against this, which, as you can tell, I'm like not really defensive. I like to do the offense stuff, but yeah, the defense against this is full disk encryption. Okay, and I've tried that and tested it and tried to get around it. So yeah, but keep in mind that it's full disk encryption where there's actually a password, right? Because some implementations of full disk encryption, they just don't even put a password, so you just kind of press enter and you're passing. So, it's not much of a thing, right? But it has to be full disk encryption. Okay, so here's the bonus, and I have 6 minutes. So, I don't know if I'm gonna actually be able to demo this unless you want me to go over, but, because the demo takes a few minutes, but what is Penbot? Now, Penbot is an internal PwnPlug name, by the way, so you wouldn't see me marketing it as Penbot so much. But I called it Penbot because I'm a big Austin Powers fan and the Penbots and all that. But physically, what is Penbot? Penbot is a laptop of any sort. There's a few out there that work with an ESXi implementation on it, right? Not many people know that you can actually load ESXi, VMware's ESXi, on a laptop, right? There's a few laptops that are compatible. So with that ESXi hypervisor installed, then a few virtual machines, one being a Linux VM that has some auto-type connect scripts, much like what are on the PwnPlug. In fact, that's where I got them. I fully admit, because they're open source and all that stuff, right? And then a couple of other virtual machines. On my Penbot, I have a Windows OS attack VM that we run our PwnPlug scanner type stuff, that kind of stuff. But I've also got a VM that's a Backtrack 5 VM and some other VMs just for fun. Okay, so why would you go through the pains of making a laptop when a PwnPlug would do, right? Well, a PwnPlug has, 800 megahertz processor, half a gig of RAM, whereas a laptop can have, 2.5 gigahertz processor, dual core, blah, 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 all this capable stuff, and a bunch of RAM, right? 4, 6 gig, whatever you can pump, okay? So think of this as a PwnPlug, but on Viagra, all right? Yeah, not zero. All right, so the use cases for a Penbot, there are some above-board use cases. You can ship it to your client and do firewall reviews and host reviews and all those fun things, a little bit of internal pen testing, that kind of stuff. Or you could just, as a social engineer, plant this in an environment and have a consistent connection into their environment where your tool set is not really limited. I mean, you have a full-fledged, whatever you can put on a laptop tool set right there. And you can also crank up the VMs and shut down the VMs, right? And of course, think Cyber APT. And I guess I don't see anybody with gear, but all right. So how does Penbot work? There we go. Okay. So essentially, what happens is you take this laptop, you throw it into the environment, you turn it on. I guess like this. Yeah. Well, that's right. Okay, so you turn it on, and the auto scripts go out and create a little reverse SSH tunnel to your machine listening out on the internet, okay, just like the PwnPlug. But in addition to creating this reverse shell, it also cranks up these little port forwards, which I don't know, is anybody here familiar with doing, I guess it's called reverse port forwarding over SSH? Anybody familiar? Okay, cool. Gee, I could have used your help a little weeks ago. All right, to me, that's another magnet moment, right? It's PFM. That you can actually forward a port that's on your internet server, not necessarily to the SSH client, but through the SSH client to another machine. That's like just magic, man. That's just so cool. So essentially what I do here is create a little reverse tunnel so I can control it if I need to, but mostly just create these two listeners on my internet box that port forward through my Linux VM to the internal interface, management interface of the ESXi box. Why the internal interface? Because this VM may not know what IP address was assigned to the ESXi box, right? So it doesn't have to, because the management interface listens on like the internal NATed address, so I can hard code that. So it doesn't even have to know it. So that gives me a vSphere, management interface so that I can start up VMs and shut them down and all that stuff. Okay? Makes sense? Okay. So for the demo, and it doesn't look like I've got time because I'm like a minute. But the idea, if maybe later, if you want to see the demo, we can kind of get together somewhere. That I've got a couple of networks set up to simulate the internet and otherwise. All right. We've got a minute. Are there any questions? By the way, we're hiring. Go out to the blog. We pretty much have a weekly blog post out there. It's pretty consistent. Brad's got several blog posts in the queue, and each week he puts them out there. Look us up on Twitter. Blah, blah, blah. Any questions? Oh, sorry, I ran out of time. Yeah. All right. Well, I thank you for your time.